Hi, this is William George with Puget Systems, and today we're going to be doing a video looking at how snappy SSDs are. We're going to be taking a look at 4 different drives: the new Samsung 960 Pro M.2 drive, which will be the fastest in the test, along with the 850 Pro SATA SSD, and a pair of hard drives, the Western Digital RE, which is a 7200 RPM drive, and a Western Digital Red, which is a 5400 RPM drive. They're all going to be set up as the primary boot drive in Windows with identical installations. I did an install on one and cloned it to all 3 of the others, so there's no difference there. And we're going to be looking at how quickly they go through the boot up process, and then launching a handful of applications, copying files around, doing a few miscellaneous things. Fairly standard tasks that just about anybody might do. I hope you enjoy the video and find this information beneficial. Here we go. Alright, the systems are booting up, and as you can see, the one on the top left, which is the 960 Pro, actually took slightly longer in the boot up process. That's because it's a PCI Express based drive rather than SATA, so it takes a little longer for the hardware to initialize, but it's catching up quickly. The 2 SSDs at the top are clearly going the fastest, and I'll kind of narrate what's going on here. First, after booting, we opened up Task Manager, then we opened up about a dozen web pages and wait for them all to load. Once they've all finished loading, we open up Adobe Photoshop. We don't open any images yet, just get the application up and running. And as soon as that's done, we're going to launch into Excel here and immediately open about a 200 megabyte spreadsheet that I created. And as Excel is opening here, you'll see that the 960 and the 850, the 2 SSD drives, are pretty much on par at this point. And in fact, the 960 just finished opening the Excel file a hair earlier, and it's on to opening a Word document now. Not much there, just, again, wanted something that was fairly standard, something a lot of people used. Next up is a file copy, and here's where the 960 really shows its chops. It's done in just a couple of seconds, whereas the 850, which is copying now, takes a little bit longer. And then we've opened a series of images in Photoshop, and at this point the test is pretty much done. We're just waiting for the drive activity to stop, and there it goes. 1 minute 35 seconds for the Samsung 960 Pro. The 850 again is a little bit behind. It'll be a few seconds slower here, but both of the SSDs snap through those things fairly quickly. The biggest difference, again, probably the file copying and maybe opening the image files in Photoshop, just in terms of how fast that was. And looks like the 850 is going to clock in here at about 2 minutes, so not much behind. And the hard drives, though, if we look down at the bottom row now, the first hard drive, the 7200 RPM, is still back on loading the Excel file, and the second hard drive, the 5400 RPM, it's right in between having the web pages load and about to open Photoshop. So those are way, way behind. And with just how slow these drives are in comparison to the SSDs above, you can see why it doesn't make sense anymore to have a traditional hard drive as the primary drive. And here we'll see on this file copy test momentarily on the 7200 RPM drive, just moving data around on the drive itself is many, many times slower. That's really what's going to probably hold these up, because with magnetic storage, it's having to read data and then turn around and write data to another section of the drive, so it's not even able to sustain a nice high speed. It's not bad, mind you. If you're just moving small files around, it probably wouldn't be a big deal, but if you ever have to copy multiple hundreds of megabytes or even gigabytes of data, it just is a ton slower. Now, if you're copying to and from different physical drives, hard drives will fare much better there. If they're able to sustain just straight reading or straight writing, they can actually maintain respectable speeds these days in the 1 to 200 megabytes per second range, depending on the exact model and speed of the drive. But here, where we're copying to and from the same drive, that definitely hinders their performance. And it looks like the 7200 RPM drive is coming close to the end of the test there. We've got the images loaded up into Photoshop, so we're just waiting for drive activity to complete. And once that happens, we'll put the time up here on the screen. It's almost done with the drive activity there, while the 5400 RPM is still just gotten to the Excel stage. Oh, yep, there we go. 4 minutes, 3 seconds for the Western Digital RE drive, making it about half the speed of the 850 Pro in these general usage tests. And yet the 5400 RPM is still chugging along. It hasn't even gotten to the file copying test yet. And that's, again, going to be a really painfully slow test here. I'm tempted to fast forward through it for you, but we'll just watch it in real time just to give you an idea of just how slow by comparison things like this are. Now, I should also point out that there are other tests you could run that I didn't include here. Anything that's actually CPU limited or video card limited, something like that, the SSD versus hard drive thing is going to be much less important. But those tasks, while they are important, of course, aren't what you're doing with the computer 100% of the time. A lot of times you are opening web pages, copying files, opening an application and just waiting for it to load up. And those situations is really what I'm focusing on here for this test. I did do some other testing that isn't being shown here, and I found that things like zipping and unzipping files, for example, performed almost exactly the same. Because in those situations, you're waiting for the CPU to do computation, not necessarily for the drive to read or write data. There's a portion of that going on, but it's not the bulk of the test. So the difference in performance was only a second or two, and I didn't really feel it was worth including here. I wanted to make the point with things that did make a difference, like copying files, which it looks like the 5400 RPM drive just finished, and then also opening images in an application like Photoshop. That's a fairly common thing that folks do. Not everybody uses Photoshop, but it's a good example of something where you can see the impact of opening large files just in terms of how quickly the application is able to handle it. And so here we go. The test is pretty much completed for the last drive. We're just, again, waiting for disk activity to finish. And here it looks like it's sloping off, so we're probably going to be able to clock this one in. Let's see, I'd say a little bit over 6 minutes here. And yes, there we go, 6 minutes, 23 seconds. So that makes it 3 times slower than the 850 Pro and 4 times slower than the 960. So again, a huge difference between using modern solid-state drives and traditional hard drives for just general usage of programs within Windows. I hope this video has been helpful and informative for you. If you liked it, please hit like and feel free to also subscribe to our channel here at Puget Systems. And have a great day.